Hello, everyone. We are jumping on for my self-publishing Q&A live series where we go over the 52 weeks worth of strategies to write, publish, and start selling your book in a year in 52 weeks. And we are on week 11. So we are actually getting into the nitty-gritty this week. I know we've been doing a lot of prep work up until this point in the year, but now we are planning our first drafts. So this week we are going to map out the outline for your book. Whether it's a work of fiction or non, you have to have a clear idea of what your overall story arc is going to be. So let's get into it. There are general rules for telling a story that have been around for millennia, ever since the first humans started telling stories around campfires. So at the beginning, we have an exposition. And so usually that is the beginning of the story that introduces the topic or the story that you are going to tell. Whether you are writing fiction or nonfiction, this is introduction of the topic. This is the starting point. And then we get to the rising actions, which is the character's attempt to solve the problem, but they fail. So if you're writing fiction, it's the character trying to solve the problem. If you're writing nonfiction, it may be you trying to solve the problem. It might be your clients trying to solve the problem, or it might be some type of research or external situation of trying to solve the problem, but it doesn't work for some reason or another. At the top, we have the climax, which is the turning point. This is when we start to discover how we can solve the problem more effectively, more efficiently. So if you're writing fiction, this is usually the character realizing it. If you're writing nonfiction, this is usually evidence or stories or the aha moment of this is the problem and this is the solution. The falling actions are the consequences of the climax. So now that they've had that realization, what do they now need to go do? And then finally, we have the resolution. So this is the end of the story where all conflicts and problems are solved. So your exercise for this week is to fill out the following prompts that we're going to go over and map out the general arc of your story. This will highlight all of the things that you need to fill in later on, whether it's statistics and graphs or character backgrounds and personalities. For now, just focus on getting the outline laid out. So first, when we were talking about the exposition, we need to introduce our audiences to the topic or the story that we are writing about. Basically, why are you telling them this? Why is it important? Why are you telling the story? This is the exposition stage. It is the beginning of the story where you lay out the characters, you lay out the settings, the tension, the catalyst, or the conflict that is the call to adventure. That's why we went over the hero's journey at the way beginning of this process. I think it's like week 1 of this process. We did our own hero's journey so that we can understand how our writing career follows this arc, right? So you should be familiar with that process already with your own life, your own story arc. So now we're expanding it to include our characters, our story, our topic, our expertise, whatever we're writing about. So this is the call to adventure. This is the thing, the catalyst that happens to initiate the story, initiate the exploration, initiate the research. We did the hero's journey exercise in week 1. So we're looking at step 1 and step 2 of the hero's journey here. What does the starting point look like, feel like, taste like, smell like, and what trigger begins the story? So for example, I want to tell a story about starting a business. I would need to lay out exactly where I was in my life path when I first felt the need to start my own business. Was there something going on in my job at the time? Where was I living at the time? What friends or colleagues was I surrounded by at the time? Was I feeling happy? Was I feeling unfulfilled? Was there some big life event that made me reconsider everything? Where did I get the idea to start a business? Was it a slow realization that took years? or was it an overnight strike of inspiration? Did I read a book about businesses, or did I listen to a podcast about entrepreneurship? What is that initial starting point, that jumping off point to start the story of starting my own business? That's the exposition. So 2, we look at rising actions. So these are the events that lead up to the climax of the story. Often this involves all of the things that the characters try in order to address the call to adventure. So these are all of the potential solutions that you try to address this trigger that happens in the exposition. So using the example of starting a business, if I want to tell the story of starting a business, maybe I tried researching entrepreneurship via certificate courses. Maybe I interviewed a wide range of different business owners. Maybe I got scared and decided to leave that goal for some other time in the future. What steps, actions, behaviors, habits, resources, perspectives, and or opinions were explored after the call to adventure was heard? What learning moments helped or hindered the path forward? This is where you use examples, anecdotes, statistics, scenes, backflashes, dialogues, facts, or charts to explain or demonstrate the respective pros and cons of the various solutions, the various methods, the various approaches that you're trying to address this call to adventure that you heard in the beginning. These details will help contextualize your story for your readers and put them in the shoes of the narrator or the main characters. So, what are the rising actions that you or your characters are trying in order to address the call to action that was heard during the exposition? Third comes the climax. So this is the turning point of the story. It is full of suspense, tension, and action. There is a decision to be made here. Do you proceed or do you retreat? You come to some type of aha moment, some type of realization, something clicks here. After all of the worthwhile lessons of the rising actions, where do you go from here? How do you proceed? So if I'm still using that starting a business story example, maybe I came to the decision that I would like to open a bakery. Maybe I was given an opportunity to become a partner of a gym franchise. Maybe I realized that I was simply looking for more time freedom and just needed to find a job that had flexible hours instead of becoming my own boss. This is the aha moment. This is the realization that you have that then follows, proceeds into the following actions. The climax is the turning point, the conclusion that is born from the experiences of the rising actions. So you have all of these lessons here, usually painful lessons, that then inform this aha moment, this realization. So next we're looking at the following actions. These are the direct consequences of the decision that was made during the climax. So if I did decide to start a bakery with my business idea, now I would need to find a retail location. I would need to figure out who is going to bake the cookies and pies and breads. Is it going to be me or is it going to be someone else? I would need to gather the money needed to decorate the business space. I would need to create a website and brochures and pricing tables. Like, there are things I need to do in order to make that decision happen, right? There are things that I need to do to make the story move forward. I can't just stop at the realization. I have to then do something with a lesson. If you are writing nonfiction, it could be like, and then we found the cure, and we have to apply the cure. We have to make the cure. We have to distribute the cure, right? If you're writing fiction, it could be the great character aha moment where they realize that they want to take over the kingdom. So what do they actually need to do in order to take over the kingdom? Right? So plan out the following actions And then you need a resolution at the end. So this is the conclusion, the end point of the story. After hearing the call to adventure, after slogging through all the lessons of the rising actions, having the epiphany, the aha moment of the climax, and dutifully following through with the consequences, where does that lead you? What is the end point? So with my bakery example, maybe I ran into supply chain issues and struggled to find a reliable source of flour for my bakery. Maybe I was super lucky and found the perfect baker to hire on the first try. Maybe it took me longer than expected to raise the funds necessary to renovate my retail space. At what point does this story reach a point of closure? Is it when I open the bakery? Is it when my bakery becomes profitable? Is it when I sell my bakery? At what point do you want to end that story? Storytelling is a circular process. So the ending of one story is going to be the beginning of another. So the story's resolution here may be an exposition for another story, right? So it's going to be the same format, just on a different level. So your resolution should set the stage for another potential story to begin. So if you're writing this, I want to take over the kingdom story, the fiction story, maybe your resolution is they've taken over the kingdom and everyone is happy. But maybe a war begins. Maybe a child is birthed. Maybe a new type of magic is discovered. And that can start the story for another book. If you're writing nonfiction, you find the cure for cancer, you create and distribute and apply the cure for cancer. Cancer doesn't exist anymore. So maybe we tackle another thing. Maybe we look into dementia, a cure for dementia instead. So that could be the beginning of the next book, right? So what is the closure point for that story? That's what we're working on this week. Next week for week 12, we're going into research needs. So what knowledge, resources, facts, figures, charts, graphs, examples, people, and or anything else do you need to write this book? We need to make a list of things that we need to research in order to write the book. So that's what we're going into next week. If you have any questions that pop up along the way, hit me up. That's what I'm here for. I'm not gatekeeping this information. If you want to follow along in the planner, that's also available in physical and digital formats for your convenience. And good luck. Have fun.